Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Wow, that was weird. Did you see my door open then? It was my dog. I promised it wasn't. I promise it's not a ghost. It's because I've just started talking, and my dog's thinking, "Who's in that room with Rosie? I'll go and check." It is nobody. Please leave, Dobby. Let's just close the door on Dobby doesn't need to see the crafts today. She doesn't want to be involved. Hello. I hope you all had a lovely bank holiday weekend. I keep trying to figure out what day it is. I'm still not sure. But it's not raining. That's the main thing. As some of you may know, if you've seen my sessions before, I do complain about the weather quite a lot. But I'm not complaining today. And we've had a lovely weekend. It's been nice and sunny. So I'm not complaining at all. And today's session is going to be full of bright colours, as usual. I never ever do anything that doesn't involve lots of colours, I don't think. If I have, then tell me what it was, because I can't remember it. And I do quite a lot of collage, I do quite a lot of cutting and sticking, quite a lot of like super easy accessible art, and that's what we're going to do today. I thought it'd be really nice to make a piece of art, a piece of wall art. It could be a card, it could be something you want to give to someone, but it's really easy to do, and I just think it's a little bit of fun. Some of my sessions before have involved using old magazine cutouts, but today we're going to use it as a bit of a feature, essentially. Good morning, Irene. I hope you're ready. Hope you've got your scissors ready. So today we're doing a bit of cutting and sticking, and I saw a picture quite similar to this, and I thought, I want to recreate this. It looks really easy but very effective. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to do like a magazine cutout, but then we're going to enhance it. So it's almost like we're going to recreate it and make a model in a magazine look kind of fantastical, and we're going to use our imagination to sort of create this kind of mad hairstyle and dress. And you can do it with absolutely anything. So you could do it with any cutout of any person. It doesn't have to be this glamorous lady here. It could be a photo of yourself or your friends or family. The key really is just the size and scale, and that you cut it out in the right way. That's basically it. But I just think it's really effective for something so simple, and it's really easy to do. And actually what I've noticed whilst making it is that you can kind of make it work in both ways. So you'll see this guy, or lady shall I say, is cut out. We've cut her out, and then we've kind of superimposed our own imagination on top of it. But then I realised when I'd finished that actually, because you cut it out in such a way, you end up with like the other bit, which I think we could probably do something with as well. So actually we're getting 2 for 1 here today. If we have time, we'll have a play around with this one as well and see what happens. I've not tried it out yet, so anything could happen. What I'm just going to do very quickly is I'm going to close my blind ever so slightly. So even though the sun's not out, it is quite glary, and that's better. That's better, isn't it? You can kind of see the magazine cut out a little bit better. It's a little bit less shiny. So I'm going to move the examples to one side. And again, most of my sessions involve using kind of materials that everyone's got, reusing things, upcycling things, that sort of thing. So I'm going to hope we can use I've got a few unusual bits of material that we can use, but it's just paper, loads of pens and some scissors and some Pritt stick. That's all we need. That's all we need to make some beautiful art. So the first thing that we need to do is find ourselves our person, essentially, and the size of the person will probably dictate the size of the paper. So for this lady, I've worked on A4 because the cutout herself fits quite nicely on an A4 piece of paper. Now, if you find the perfect picture, or you've already got a perfect picture in mind, then you might want to scale it to fit. So it might be that the paper is slightly smaller. But essentially what we're looking for here, so I'm going to I think the hardest part about this session is finding the right image to work with what we're doing. So I've got a few magazines here to kind of show you some ideas. I think personally the way this works best is if you can have a face and then something to do with the arms, and then everything else we can recreate around it. So as long as you've got a lovely face, and as long as you've got some arms that are in a decent sort of area, then you're good to go. So I was looking at some of these images and trying to think. So for example, this one, you could make it work, but you'd probably have to cut her hand out here and then cut her hand out here. And it might be quite difficult to work out this bit because her arms are at an angle. So that might be quite difficult. I was thinking about this one, and I think this one could work quite nicely because essentially we can cut her face out and then we could have her arm here, get this little bit of sleeve, and this bit is all joined. So you've got one piece of cutout. So we might use her. She's quite a good one. Then I've got some here as well. So essentially any kind of magazines that have got kind of fashiony bits in it are useful because they're the ones that have got full spreads of like a whole person on the whole of the page rather than sort of close-ups. So it's this sort of thing you're after. I was thinking this one's really nice because she's got this mask. But then I thought, well, where are her arms going to be? So the way you could get around this is we could maybe cut around her face and the arms in one motion, cut it out around here, and then you've got one thing, and then we just work on her dress here. So that could work quite nicely. I thought this one's quite nice as well. It might be that we keep some of the sleeve and then we just add the dress afterwards. So there's loads of different options, but it's just about looking about where their hands are, what they're doing with their hands, and how big the image is. So we've got a few options here. The other option, and again, if you've been to my sessions before, you'll know that Rosie likes a secondhand book. I've used this in, I mean, I think this book's probably featured in more virtual village hall sessions than myself. I don't know how that's possible, but this was from a charity shop, one of the book charity shops just in my local town. I think it was £1.50, and it's an old sort of movie review book. I love old books that you can get super cheap and then you can rip out all the pages and use them. This guy looks happy. We could use him, but I did find this one earlier and I put it to one side. It's Lucille Ball, and isn't she a stunner? Beautiful lady, look at this. And I thought she'd be fantastic because we've got these gorgeous eyelashes and we've got the shoulders here. So I thought we could cut that out quite nicely. I think we could make a feature of that. So I do quite like the idea of using old photos. If you don't have like a book of old photos, but you do have like a laptop and a printer that just prints normal stuff, then there's no reason why you can just Google one of your favorites of old time Hollywood stars and print that out and use that. So you could choose who you're going to print out instead of just finding something in a magazine. I just love this idea that we'd take a sort of black and white photo and then just make it really bright and garish and fantastical. So I think what we'll do is we'll cut a couple out so we've got a couple of options and then we can decide when we get there. So I'm going to move my movie book out of the way, my trusty movie book. Now the other thing as well is that we can use the magazines as cutouts to make parts. We can use them to make the dress, the hair, the background, whatever. So all of this can be offcuts from magazines and books and stuff like that. So we're just going to use a normal pair of scissors. It's really, this bit isn't tough. The only thing I would say is if you like the idea of doing the opposite side, is you might want to just consider making sure that you're just doing one cut. So you're being really careful with when you're cutting the face out so that you're not ruining this edge bit here, so you can reuse this at a later date if you so wish. So we'll try that with Lucille. Now we've just got to decide which part of her we're using. I mean, I'm considering whether we cut around her face. Now it would be a shame to get rid of her hair, but we're going to do it anyway because we want to make a feature of the hair. So we might cut around her face. Maybe we keep her shoulders. So we keep like the top half of her in, and then we just recreate a beautiful dress and then beautiful hair. I think that would probably work the best. So let's start with that because look, it's super easy. We're basically just going to cut around. So we're going to cut out her dress essentially. And then we're going to get, where's her armpit? There it is. Cut into her armpit there. Now what we're going to do, it's very important, this bit, is to keep their dress so that we can then use it as a marker when we stick it down. So we're not going to throw any of this away because it's going to be useful later. So I'm going to cut around her hairline and cut away all those beautiful curls, but then we're going to make some lovely hair at a later date. So for this one, I'm not cutting her face out. I'm going to keep her whole top half here, like so. There we go. Now that looks a bit odd now. She's got no hair. Good morning, Liz. I hope you're having a good time. Hope you're having a nice Tuesday. I keep thinking it's Monday. It's definitely not Monday. So there she is, look, ready to go. Now, the reason we're going to keep this bit is if we decide to use this at a later date, what we might do is the opposite of what we're doing right now, which is we might recreate her face and stick this bit down. But we're going to keep this bit because this bit is going to be really handy for marking out where her dress starts so that we can kind of make sense of the way it's going to go, the way it's going to sit. Oh yeah, if you have I've got loads of old photos of my grandma and I would love to do that with this. I just didn't have time to print them out, but that's a great idea. If you've got old photos of family members that are old black and white photos, they're always wearing gorgeous dresses, aren't they? But you could do it with men in suits and things like that. But I would just say if you take a photo of it on your phone and then print it through that so you can make it bigger, also not chopping up old photos, unless of course you've got like duplicates. But yeah, I love the idea of doing that with old photos. I think that's a great idea. In fact, it's my grandma's birthday at the weekend, so I'm going to do this for that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make her a card. Thank you for that, Liz. I think you should sit here. So we've got Lucille here. She's ready to go. And I think what I'm going to do is, before I carry on, I'm going to cut this lady out as well, because I think it would be good to have two options just in case. And then I can move this magazine out the way so we've got a bit more of a space to work with. Okay, so for this one, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to cut her face out. We're just going to keep her arms, her shoulders, her neck and her head. And we'll keep the mask in this one, but I think we can probably add hair to it, can't we? We can still make it super fantastical and exciting. Lovely. And then what we'll do is we'll get into her top there. So now do we cut her top out? Yeah, let's cut her top out. I think that's the best thing. But again, let's not forget to keep this to one side so we can use it as a marker. So there we go. Nearly done. Lovely. So there, we've got our two images and they are both going to create something beautiful. So we're going to put the offcut to one side, ready to mark. Now let's decide. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with Lucille, and what I've got here is a lovely piece of yellow card. It's not thick card, it's not fancy card, it's just coloured card from a pack. You can get a pack of coloured card from a craft store for a couple of quid, and you can get all the different colours, and that's quite useful if you want to add different colours to this. So she's ready to go. Here she is. And this is the point where you're going to need your sort of offcut so that you can start marking things. So we're not going to stick her down yet because this is the background and that's probably going to be the last thing that we do. What we're going to decide now is on some colours and some different types of paper to use. So I've got here, now we've just been talking about old photos. I wonder if any of you have got any old records that you don't listen to anymore, because this is another thing that you can get from charity shops really cheaply, is old records. And I've done sessions in the past with the actual records themselves, but then you're left with all the cardboard covers and the sleeves that the records come in. And it seems like such a shame to throw those away. So if you have any old records that you don't know what to do with and you're thinking of chucking them, then the sleeves that the records come in are really useful bits of paper, really useful scraps. They're often kind of discoloured because they're old, and I just think they have a nice texture to them, and why not use them for something like this? So this is the old sleeve of a record. I'm going to use this for, I think, maybe her, should we go with her hair? Let's go with her hair. So what we can do is we can use this offcut now, and we can be really big with this bit because we're going to go over the top. We can get a pencil essentially to sort of draw around. You're kind of almost tracing around her face. So you don't have to be neat with this. And then you're just making a mark either side that her hair ends, so that when we recreate that hair, we know it's going to sit properly on her head and not look, it's going to fit, even though it's going to be unusual. So if I move that away, what you're left with, I don't know if you can see this, just about. So I've drawn around her face, and then I've done a little mark either side where her hair ends, so that now what I can do is I can create something big, bold, exciting. And we can put it on top of our A4 card so we can make sure that we're not going over the edge, like so. So there she's sitting. We've got our markers there and there. There she is. And we know that we can go up to about here. Okay, wonderful. So we can move her out of the way, or we can keep her there if we so wish. And what sort of hair are we going to give her? I think we'll go kind of wavy. Wavy's nice and easy. So I'm just going to do a nice wavy shape. I mean, this is wild, but I love it. And it's going to go all the way down here. And maybe it's going to tail off and sort of end like that. Okay, now you probably can't see that because of the light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully go over that in pen so that you can see what I've done. And then when I cut it out, I'm just going to make sure that you can't see the pen bit. And you can do any shape you want, as long as it's big and bold. There we go. So you can kind of see, if I point that upwards, you see that lovely wavy line. So that's essentially what I'm going to cut out. And what you can also do is just make a little bit of a marker where her arm is, just to make sure you're not going completely overboard. And then we can cut that out. So first things first, try and tidy up our space. Rosie's not very good at that. And we're going to cut. Now, first of all, I'm going to do a very rough edit of this so that I don't have all this excess. I'll throw that to one side. And I'm going to do my wavy line. There we go. And actually, you probably don't need to cut the face out because we can stick her on top anyway. So we'll just have a check once we've cut that out. Okay. So we can pop that down there. And then we can stick her on top and just make sure that it's not kind of sticking out in any weird places. No, I think the only thing I'm going to do is just chop off this bit here so that her shoulder can sit in there quite nicely. And you can fiddle around with it because it doesn't really matter. So she can sit, I think she's going to sit like this, isn't she? And we could maybe move her down if we wanted. We could add things around here. It's entirely up to you how we do this. So that's going to be her hair. Now what I'm going to do is make her dress work, and then we can decorate those pieces of paper to make them really exciting. So we're going to move her hair out of the way. We're going to keep it close by though, just in case we need it. And then we can pop this back on here. So here's our sort of template. Now we need another piece of paper for her dress. So I'm wondering actually if we should go with like a magazine cutout for this. So I'm going to just pop back to this magazine and see if we can find anything nice. So I often find that some of the kind of the landscapey ones, like the holiday sections, are quite nice. Sometimes the food ones are quite nice because you get all these lovely bright colours. This one's got a dog on it. I mean, could her dress be doggies, do you think? Is that a bit wild? Let's keep looking. I got a bit excited then. I mean, look at this. Here we go. This whole page is just wallpaper. I think this could work quite nicely. I'm going to rip that out as a maybe because I think that could work. But we can always go over the top of it. It doesn't have to just be that. These ones are quite nice with all these bright colours. As you can see, the possibilities are endless. I should probably stop flicking through this, shouldn't I? I'm just trying to see, is there the perfect one? Look at this. This would work. Beautiful. So there's loads of stuff we can use. Landscape, as I said, would work, you know, kind of anything that's kind of got grass, trees, that sort of thing. I think we're going to stick with this green wallpaper, aren't we? I think that feels right. Okay, yeah, I've gone through all of it. I've decided. So let's try and make this page work. So we can move her out of the way. And then again, we're going to do the same thing where we're going to make sure it all sits right. So we're going to sort of mark it. So the dress is here. So we kind of want to start up here so we get the most of this lovely fabric, knocking everything over at the same time, obviously. So she can go all the way to the top, can't she? Like so. And then I think what I'll do is I'll use like a bright pen so that we can see it. So I'm going to use this pink marker. I'm going to sort of mark it like this. And then it's going to go down like that. Now it does go, she has a sort of knee up, so we could make that a feature. We don't have to. We could just, so it kind of goes in like that, doesn't it? So we could make that a feature, or we don't have to. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out this top bit. And again, you can fiddle with this, you can play around with it, and you know, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work because you're just using offcuts of stuff, and you can start again. You can use a different piece of paper if it doesn't work out. You can chop it down to size, you can use something else. So I'm just having a play here. I'm just going to see what happens when I cut this out. So if we now just chop this edge off here, and then we can decide how the dress is going to sit based on how it all looks. So we're going to pop the hair here. Then we've got her face. Where is she? There she is, look. And then here, oh, hello. That works quite nicely. So you can kind of see the kind of shape where her knee was. That works quite nicely. I'm inclined, because her arm's been chopped off here because that's where the page ended. I'm wondering if we could make a feature out of that. We could do something with it. But that works quite nicely like that, doesn't it? And then we could kind of cut around here. It's entirely up to you what you do. I'm just going to move this out of the way a second, and I'm just going to see if we think it's worth. I think, personally, we should make her dress go over her arms so it doesn't look strange. So we're going to let's try with a nice plain. So that's an option to use your magazine cutout. I'm going to go use this pink piece of paper now to show you, because then what we'll do is we can decorate it. So she's going to sit here. I think, just going to move, my charger is just getting in my way. So if we move this along here, or do we go down like that? No, let's make her dress big. Or alternatively, we could completely cover up her arms and do it like that. I think that could work quite nicely, couldn't it? Let's do that. And then we don't need to worry about her arms being chopped off at the bottom. So we're just going to mark either side, and it's going to start on that straight edge there. And then we can decide. So if we start it there, so where, hang on, this is the fiddliest bit. It's just working out where it all starts and ends. Okay, starts more like that. And how do we want this to go? What shape do we want? How do we want it to look? Do we want to give it some texture, or are we going to do the texture with the kind of mark making with the pens? I'm kind of feeling like it's, let's see, do we want this to make a shape like this sort of thing? Would that work? Yeah, I think that would work. And then we're going to go, what should we just do? We could just float outwards like this, or it could go like this. You can do anything. We could just go out, could just go outwards, whatever you like. So Going like this. I think we're going to go, if we keep her arm there, I'm just trying to figure out what to do with her arms. And then if we go down like this, and it can kind of float towards the bottom, and we'll just see what happens, shall we? So you can do whatever shape you like. It doesn't have to be, the other thing as well is it doesn't actually have to be realistic, because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a little bit different. So I'm going to make sure that I don't chop off too much at the bottom, like so. So that sits there quite nicely. And then if we, hang on, I'm just wondering if we put that on top. Okie dokie. And I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it like this. Stick her down there. And actually we can kind of do it so that it's, there we go. Kind of looks like her arm is behind her dress there. And then we can make a feature of this bit as well. We can put some patterns on here. Lovely. So then what we can do, now we've kind of got our dresses in place and all of that business, is we can start decorating everything. So we can decorate all the things. So we can decorate the background, we can decorate the hair, we can decorate the dress. So let's start with the background. We now need to think about colour schemes and what we want it to look like. So if I get the example piece from before. So I've made a feature of the hair, wanted the hair to be really bright, but then the dress itself is quite patterned, and then the background is quite kind of floaty. So you can do absolutely anything, but I don't want it to feel like it's going to be difficult. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I've got this yellow piece of card. I'm going to see what happens when I put like a yellow marker on it and see if it makes a difference. And I'm just doing kind of swirls. We just want it to have a bit of texture, basically. And it's pretty much exactly the same colour as the card, but it just adds a little bit of something. And that's what we want. We want lots of different textures, lots of different patterns. Lovely. And then I quite like the idea of gold as well. You can use anything. So I've got a selection of pencils. I've got some, these are like highlighter pens. We've got normal kind of marker pens, chalk pens, anything you like. So I might go in now with, let's go in with some pale pink. We'll see what happens, because we've got pale pink on here for the dress, but I'm going to cover that with lots of other stuff. So now I've done the swirls that way, I might turn it round and maybe we'll do some, let's think, maybe we'll do some going along that way. And the more layers you do, the better it will look, because there'll be more going on. Very nice. Okay, so there's some pink swirly swirls. Let's go in with like a pencil now. So let's see. Got myself. This is where I struggle because I can't choose colours because I like all of them. So now I've got a pencil, and now I might go in and just kind of do some squiggles. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be good at drawing. We're just sort of just making marks just to add a bit of something. It looks so much better than if you just use a plain piece of card. And then maybe we'll try one of these highlighters. So these are like the sort of highlighters you get to do studying at school. I do like a neon. And it's just adding colour, really. It's just adding something. Now, I wanted to use the gold, but I think I'm going to save the gold for either maybe her hair or her dress. And I'm not sure which yet. I'm not sure which I prefer. Let's try another one of these highlighters. Just doing some lines now. And I mean, this in itself would look beautiful, but adding to it with this super simple technique will work really nicely. Okay, so now we've got a kind of nice textured background. It's got a bit of something on it. Let's put all of it back on so we can kind of reassess what we want everything to look like. We're going to put her dress over her arm like so. And then, let's just soften this edge, I think. Soften the edge around her dress. I think that would make, that's the one, that's the ticket. And then her hair looks fabulous. And in fact, actually, at this point, I'm just wondering, could the hair sit off the edge of the paper, actually? There's nothing to stop us kind of going, well, do you know what? This looks better. Kind of sticking out almost. It gives it a bit more depth, doesn't it? Quite like that. So we could just go all out. If we put her dress like that, we could do something at the bottom of her dress here and have that sticking over the edge. That would also work. That would work nicely, wouldn't it? So with that in mind, we'll do her hair next. So we'll leave those there, and then we're going to take her hair. Now we need to think about colours again. Oh my goodness, I can never decide. I think what I'm going to do is, because we've got the yellow background, I think we'll put some gold on the pink dress. So for this guy, let's have a think. We want something contrasting. I do have a blue highlighter. Maybe we go in with some blue. Yes. Let's do a selection of blues. So I'm going to start with my highlighter pen. And you've got her face here, so you know sort of the shape and the way that she's sitting. So you could try, so let's do this. We're going to do some sort of sunshine rays going all the way around her head. But then we'll add lots of other pattern as well. I think that works quite nicely, doesn't it? That's going to look great. And you can always keep testing the waters by popping the photo back on. That looks great. But we're going to add more stuff. So again, we like a swirl. Oh, maybe we could do some hearts as well. All sorts. Yeah, let's do some. I'm going to do loads of hearts. But they're all going to overlap each other. And they're not going to be neat. It's just sort of creating a pattern. And it doesn't matter if you go into this bit here, because her face is going to sit on top of it. So it'll make it look more authentic. And again, I'm just filling the space with patterns. Very nice. Oh, lovely. That's looking good. Again, we can pop her back on, see how she's looking. So yeah, we definitely need a bit more colour, a bit more pattern. So let's go in with this blue marker now. I'll maybe do some little things now. So I quite like edging it. So I'm going to do some little dashes around the edge of the hair. Seems to kind of just kind of frame it almost, just sort of framing the hair shape. Now, if you wanted to, you could use paint at this point. You don't need to use pens. You could, you know, try mixing some colours and paint your piece of paper and then cut it out. There's all these different options. You can have a real good experiment with it. Okay, so that's her. Yeah, her hair's looking great, isn't it? I'm just thinking now we might want another something. So if I then pop it back on here, see how she's looking. The hair's looking good. I'm just thinking I'm going to go in with some pink. I'm going to go in with pink. I've got a pink marker, highlighter, sorry. And I'm just going to do some mad swirls. It just feels like the space needs filling with more colour. Sort of a contrasting colour. And I'm just sort of squiggling now. Doesn't need to be fancy. Just something to make it pop. There we go. Lovely. Yeah, that's it. I'm happy with that now. That's looking good. So she's going to sit like that. We've got to make sure, yeah, if we're going to stick her over the edge there, that's looking nice. And you kind of, this is the hardest bit, is just piecing it together, making sure it all sits nicely. So her dress, if we're going to go, let's go this way. Again, I'm wondering, yeah, let's cut that bit just to cut it to shape. We just want the, just make sure the shape of her dress is perfect. Although not realistic, obviously, that's kind of the point, is that it's going to be kind of unusual. Yeah, that works quite nicely. And then we could make a feature. We could do something here with her arm later. We could add something in. We could put something over the top of it, whatever we like. I know we're going to sit it in the middle. It's kind of like doing a jigsaw, isn't it? A little bit. So one more chop of this bit here, just to make that perfect. And then we can colour her dress in. So, yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. So her dress is going to sit like that. We want to give that lots and lots of colour. So again, I did mention gold, didn't I? But I'm going to start with some other colours. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the yellow, is that I'm going to go in with quite a similar colour and just see what happens, just to give it texture. Now this time I'm going to go with some stripes. Now this paper is quite thin, so it's curling up a little bit. So if you're using paint, for example, you might want to wait for it to dry, maybe flatten it under some books first before you stick it down, just in case it's a little bit tricky to stick. Okay, so we've got some stripes. What else do we want? Do we want some dots? Oh, gold. We wanted gold, didn't we? I'm just going to see. I'm going to use one more of these highlighter pens that I really like. What have we got? What colours have we got? Oh, an orange. We've not used an orange yet, have we? Should we try that one? What shape should we do now? We could do some stars on it, couldn't we? Let's do some stars. Oh, I love a pink and orange. Big fan of pink and orange. My bedroom used to be pink and orange when I was a young girl. Back in the 90s, when people were really obsessed with dolphins, I used to have a pink and orange bedroom, and then just dolphin stuff everywhere. Had a poster of a dolphin ornaments. There was just that time there in the 90s where dolphins were really in. There we go. A bit like a fruit pastel, I feel. It's quite hard to see the pink and orange, isn't it? There you go. Now you can see. It's pink and orange. Definitely pink and orange. Okay, let's have a look, see how she's looking. Very bright. Now, I tell you what we haven't got. We haven't got any green, have we? I've got this lovely green marker here, and I'm just wondering how we can utilise that. Or do I go in with the gold and then do something green afterwards? Let's put some gold on. Let's see what happens when we do the gold. Now for the gold, I think I'm going to just do loads of dots. Metallic pens are always good because they just add a texture, reflection. They're reflective, so when they shine in the light, they look nice. So even if you can't see them very well, they will just add a bit of something when they're glittering in the sunlight. And you can see I'm not doing fancy patterns. I'm not doing anything difficult. You could do this with the kids. Kids could do this quite easily. You could get them to colour in some paper, do some really mad patterns on card and paper, and then you could do the cutout. In fact, that would be fun doing a photo shoot with them to get them to stand in the right way so you get the right sort of photograph. I think that would look really cool. Okay, so how's she looking? So I'm just trying to make sure her dress sits perfectly. She's going to sit about there, I reckon. Yeah, that looks good. And we can move this up ever so slightly, because now we're getting to the point where we're sort of nearly finishing. So we're just doing our finishing touches. Do you know, I'm wondering if we could I just want to cut this in the right place. Okay, so I'm going to chop this at the bottom here. Make sure it sits nicely. So she's going to sit there. Okay, we're getting there. And popping that there. And then we just want to do something with the arm. So I'm wondering if we could just put something on there. We could add something. So in this one, I've got these like big circular stickers. They would work. I've just added some bits and bobs just to give it a bit of something. It doesn't have to be realistic. This is the great thing about it. So like, for example, we could use this bit that we've chopped off, or we could create something else, and we're just adding sort of shapes just to give it a bit of something. So I think with that in mind, we're ready to stick our big bits down, unless we think anything needs any more patterns, and then we can just add some shapes to give it a bit of something. So the first thing that we're going to do is we'll stick the hair down, because the hair is underneath everything else. So we're just going to make sure that's sort of the right area. That seems okay to me. And we need to mark it somehow. So we're I think the best place to mark it is here, because we're not going to see this bit of pencil because her face will be covering it. So there you go. I've made that marker there. So I've got the little line in the nick, so I know that it's going to sit exactly there. And then I'm just going to go in with my Pritt stick. Now you can use PVA glue at this point if you prefer, if you think that's going to stick better. PVA glue is kind of a bit harder, isn't it? Depends what you're using it for. If this is going to be sort of put up on someone's wall, then maybe use PVA glue because it's probably going to last longer. It's not going to peel off in the sunlight or anything. But you'll probably just have to wait a bit longer for it to dry and make sure it's all sitting flat and lovely. If this is going to just be sort of like a greetings card, then I think Pritt stick is fine, isn't it? Okay, so stuck that down. There's her hair. And now we're ready to stick her down. So we don't need to do any markering there because we know that her face is going to sit there. And again, I think I would probably be inclined to use PVA glue if you have access to it, and a paintbrush. But this is much quicker. So that's why I'm using this today. Usually if I do PVA glue, you kind of have to sit and let it dry, put it on a radiator or something. Okay, so we're popping her. We're going to make sure, we need to move her up slightly so that there's not a gap here. You basically just don't want any gaps because you don't want to ruin the illusion. So there she is there with her lovely crazy heart hair. How much fun is that? Love it. And then the last thing we're going to do is pop her dress on, and then we can add some bits and bobs to it. Okay, that's looking good. Is it? I can't get a handle on this dress, can I? Maybe she just needs, I think it perhaps needs cutting down here, doesn't it? Promise this is the last time I'll cut her dress. Let's see. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? That's more like it. Okay, and yet again, we don't need to do any markering here. We're just going to go for it with the glue. I'll have to remember to wipe my table later because I do have a habit of forgetting to clean up after myself properly. So we're going to pop her there, a nice angle. Yeah, there we go. Lovely. So there she's got, it kind of looks like a bathrobe almost, doesn't it? It's like she's just got out of the shower and she's popped her really fantastic bathrobe on and her hair's gone crazy. She's just washed it, put loads of products on it. So there we have our sort of main components. That is all you have to do. That's all you really need to do. You know that you don't need to do any fancy sort of pattern work on there. It's really simple stuff. It's just lots of colours and shapes basically, but we can add to it. There's more we can do to it if you're not happy with it or if you want a bit more. So for example, if you use offcuts of sort of painted things, or alternatively, to make this much easier for you, is we can use some of the cutouts from our magazines. So, I mean, first of all, I've got this offcut from the bottom of her dress, which I'm very tempted to use in some way. Maybe it would just be a shape up here. Quite like the idea of that. It's just a bit of something extra, isn't it? It's not, doesn't have to make sense. Doesn't have to be for any reason other than you kind of like the look of it. So I'm going to add that on there because it would be a shame not to, because it's got all those lovely pink and oranges on and those golden dots. And that's just going to sit on the top there. And then I think we need some shapes down here. Let's see. I'm just wondering if this green thing we were looking at earlier works. I don't think it works with the colours, so we'll save that. But what we also have is the cutout from her actual picture, so we could always use some of that. So for example, we could just, now we can reuse that if we want, but I'm just thinking these colours work quite nicely, so I've literally just ripped a section. I might make it slightly thinner. We can use both bits if we want to. We could stick that along. I think that works along there, doesn't it? And in fact, we could add patterns to it. So let's get some gold. Let's do some gold lines on it. Again, it's all just about adding texture and depth, but not having to do anything particularly difficult, apart from get gold pen all over your desk. This desk is just throughout all these sessions that I do, it's just slowly but surely making my desk more and more colourful with pen marks that won't rub off. Hey, but it's not an artist's desk if it's not a little bit messy, right? There we go. So that's going to get stuck along there. That's quite nice. That works into that. And then we have got this one left over, this kind of stripe. I'm wondering if we can make a fit. Again, I don't like that her arm's sticking out, but there's not much I can do about it because I'm not going to create an extra arm. So I want to kind of cover it, sort of, but not make a feature of it too much. So let's see if we can find a magazine cutout to do something with. And again, it might just be that we rip something out of it. So we want something that's going to go with these colours, these kind of fruit pastel colours, isn't it? It's kind of like a fruit salad or something like that. I mean, these sorts of things. The other thing that you could do is cut actual things out. So why don't we do that? Let's see if we can find something. So if you look on this page, for example, this is like an interiors page. There's like a bow here. This would be great. Shall we cut the bow out and put that on her hair? I think that could work quite nicely. Still got that doggy page. Still quite like the idea of using the dogs. Let's have a look. I want those interior pages back. We've got more interior pages this way. Oh, this is the food bit. I mean, you could utilize some of these. Often with the food pages as well, is they're always put on really beautiful ceramics and plates. So you can use those if they're like patterned. Like that looks quite nice. That would make a nice sunshine. And then we've got these lovely like candlesticks and things like that. They could work. I wonder if we could do something with that. I mean, the possibilities are endless, aren't they? And all you need is just one magazine. For the record, I don't buy magazines. I make my mum give me her old ones that she's not reading. So I don't even pay for the magazines. They're free. And you can always use the free magazines that you get in like supermarkets and stuff. I feel like there must be something here that we can use with these lovely ceramics. The other thing as well you can look at, especially in these are nice, especially when you look at fashion magazines, is they'll often have kind of bits at the front. Let's go to the front and have a look here. Here we go, look, where they just put items of clothing. I think those always work well. So look, we could give her some sunglasses, we could just stick a shoe on there, but you can also look for sort of the patterns that might work quite nicely. And it's kind of look of the draw really, because sometimes you get lots of bright colours and sometimes you don't. So it kind of just depends. But you know, like this is an earring, but this could work quite nicely just to stick on there for whatever reason. So I'm going to go back to, let's go back to the interior page because there were lots of nice colours on here, wasn't there? And let's find, oh, we're back to the food. Goodness me. Right, let's use some of this stuff here. So I'm going to rip that page out and we're going to use some of these beautiful colours for something. I mean, it could be anything you like. This is quite nice. It's got a wiggly line. We're just looking for shape and colour, really. So I'm going to start off by chopping off the bit that's got the writing on, because that bit's boring. We don't want that. We've got the colour scheme. There's oranges in here. And then we can carefully cut this out. Or alternatively, if you've got a landscape, you could just rip a slice of something out. Go wiggly, wiggly, wiggly. And then we could think about, actually, do you know what? Let's rip this bit. We like a kind of ripped edge. It looks quite nice. And we can just, again, we're just building up. Could we make a feature of that? Could we stick it there? I think we'll do that. We're going to cut that edge so it's straight, and we'll stick that over her arm, and then we'll maybe put something else here that fits. Okay. Oh, I've ripped it. Never mind. We'll just stick it on. There we go. No one needs to know. Lovely. And then I think the last thing we want is maybe some, I'm thinking this is quite nice. We've got lots of nice colours here. It could just be a nice stripe. So if I cut that out. See, who knew you could get so much from a magazine? There's so many things you could get. So again, I think just like a stripe, like with this one. So I'm going to cut that straight. I'm not going to rip this one. And I'm just going to make sure there's no white on it. I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice when using magazine cutouts, is just make sure you don't get any bits that are just sort of boring white paper. You just want something, even if it's got writing on, that's better. There we go. That can go along there nicely. There we go. And at this point, if you wanted to add any more pen, you could do that. I still feel like this needs to go somewhere, maybe just along the bottom. Let's chop off the edge a little bit, make it slightly thinner. And I'm just experimenting now with shapes. That looks quite nice. Yeah, let's pop that on there. Why not? And I mean, if you really wanted to, if you wanted to go to town, you could add glitter, you could add sequins, you could add pom-poms. I usually add sequins and glitter and pom-poms to things, but today I thought we'd just stick with really simple materials. So you don't have to, but there's nothing stopping you adding a load of glitter and things like that. The other thing that we could do is we could start working on top of the actual image itself. So if we wanted to add onto her, if we wanted to add makeup, for example, that could be quite fun. We could give her a necklace. You can make her a necklace out of sequins, that sort of thing. I just want, the one last thing that I want is I want something circular. So today is all about sort of shape and colour, really simple shapes, really simple colours, and nothing too difficult to do. And I feel like something circular could work really, really well. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find something. Yeah, pom-poms over the hand, that would be great. Yes. I think anything that's really easy to stick on is going to add to this sort of thing, right? You're just adding texture, colour, pattern. The more you build up on it, the better it will be. The only thing I would say is if you're using pom-poms and sequins is they might be a bit more difficult to frame. Now, one of the things I quite like about this is because it's just a nice flat piece of art. If you put this in a frame and put it up on your wall, no one would guess that this was something that you've just made with magazine cutouts. There's no way people would think you bought it from like a fancy shop. That's what I really love about this style of using the cutout of a person. It looks quite professional considering we've just scribbled on some card and you'd use some Pritt stick. But you can buy frames that are sort of wider than a piece of paper. So if you wanted to add stuff to this like pom-poms and sequins, then you could get one of those sort of deep frames that allows you to have things sticking out of it. So, right, one last thing. I just want to do the circle trick for you. So again, I'm going to go back to my magazine one last time. Try not to get distracted by all the lovely things in there, because that's what I tend to keep doing. I just want to find something, again, similar to the colour scheme that we've used. And then I'm going to draw a circle, and I want this to be a perfect circle. So the reason I want to show you this is so that you can see me actually kind of drawing around it. I'm going to go back to those interiors. Don't look at the doggies again. Here we go. I'm going to use these stripes because that will be a nice contrast. I want the circle. I'm thinking about sort of the arrangement of things. And we've got our lovely stripes going along here. I think the circle wants to sit like around her shoulder. So I'm going to use these stripes. I think that seems right. And then all we need to do is cut out a much bigger, oops, sorry, bashing my camera there. I'm going to cut out a much bigger version of it, essentially. So just so it's not in the magazine, because that will make it more difficult. So we're going to sort of chop down the bits we don't want. So we know it's going to be this sort of area here, but we're going to draw around it on the other side, because that way we're not going to be left with the sort of the circle mark. So we need a circle shaped thing. What have I got? I've got many things I could draw around. I think I'm going to draw around this pot of glitter. That seems like a nice shape. Yeah, perfect. So you want to find something circular, any kind of anything to draw around it. And I think with magazine cutouts, because it's quite thin paper, you can probably hold it up to the light and just make sure it's in the right place. Now I can see, you can't see on the camera, but if you do it on a magazine cutout, I promise, if you hold it up to the light in the window, you'll see your mark and the other side, so you'll know that it's in the right place. So now we're going to cut this circle out very carefully, this one, because I want it to be nice and neat. I want it to look like a very perfect circle. Oh, I've done very well for time today. I'm quite surprised. I'm usually too busy nattering. I mean, I have done a lot of nattering. I always do. Okay, so there we go. Look at that. Perfect. I got all the stripes. I got all the bits I wanted. And that's going to sit maybe at a jaunty angle. Oh, I really like that. I do feel like it needs something though, right? Do you think it maybe needs some kind of colour on it? Oh, I might put the yellow. I'm going to put the yellow highlighter on it. Just for something, I'm just going to do some squiggles on it, just to give it something extra. And then, okay, one last bit of sticking. Okie dokie. And then I'm going to, because they're stripes, I want to make sure they're sitting at an angle. Just make sure I've got it in the right place. I kind of want it to overlap the hair and her shoulder, or maybe just her shoulder. I can't decide. So difficult. I think we're going to stick it there. That's it. Done. There we go. So there we have our beautiful, well, very, very fancy art, isn't it? Very fancy art, but just using cutouts from magazines and some pens and some glue. That's all it takes. So it's just all about the patterns and the shapes and the geometry of it all, which you can decide on yourself. You don't have to do fancy artwork at all. And I think the main thing is that you want to make sure that you cut their hair off and make sure they've got nice, big, crazy hair, and give them something to wear. That's the main thing. You cut out your person, give them hair, give them clothes. That's it, right? That's all you need. Now, one thing I just want to show you before I go very quickly, I'm not going to do it properly, but just so that you remember when I told you before. So the original example that I gave you, which is underneath lots of bits of paper now. So this lady here, when I cut her out originally, so we've got it the same with this one that we've just done, but I really like this one because I managed to cut around her hair and her body, is that you can also make a feature of that. So before, when I said make sure you keep this to one side because it might be becoming useful. So just as some ideas, and I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to say it to you so that you can maybe think about it and have an experiment. But this in itself, I think, has legs. I think this could work really well. Not actual legs. Her legs have been cut off on the piece of paper. But I just mean this could work as something really lovely. So it's just about thinking about what we might put underneath and how we might work around it. I honestly quite like the idea of her face not being a face at all and it just being patterns. So, for example, one of these lovely pattern pieces that we've made earlier with the squiggles, why not just plonk that underneath and use that, make a feature of it, make a feature of the face, the fact that she doesn't have a face. We could do more patterns on this side. You know, that could be quite abstract. You don't have to think about quite as much as it looking like a person, but I still think it's got something to it, you know. So just remember, when you first have a go at this, when you cut out your first person, keep her surroundings or his surroundings, and you might be able to reuse that. And then you've got two pieces of art. just from cutouts, just magazine cutouts and a bit of scribbling. What fun. That's me. We're on 12 exactly. I can't believe it. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's really fun. It's like that was a bit different for me. I do a lot of collage, but I've never done this before, and I really like it. I think it's such an easy process, but really effective. I think if you framed this and popped it in like a little gallery, no one would know any different. Who knows? Maybe we can sell them for loads and loads of money, and we'll all live in a big mansion. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to go and have some lunch now. It is Tuesday, not Monday. Thank you. My name's Rosie Johnson. My business is Rosie and Ramona. I do all sorts of this sort of thing all the time. And I will be back soon. I can't remember when exactly. It's either next week or the week after, doing some more easy, accessible crafts that anybody can do. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.